Hello, this is Craig Mertens, Director of Product Education for Inktovo, the parent company of Graphics Flow, InkSoft, and Printavo. I'm joined today by Joel Taylor, who is a Customer Success Manager at InkSoft, one of my favorite people in the organization, and he's the guy I go to when I have questions. The first thing I want to talk about with InkSoft Stores is why stores? I think that's the biggest question, because I think one of the things you find once you've kind of established that business practice of hosting stores for your customers, it's pretty hard to go back from that. And the reason I think largely is you've just made it so convenient for your clients to do business with you, but you've also created an environment where they're kind of locked to you. So, I think once you start doing stores, it's just really hard to envision doing business anywhere else. So what we want to do, Joel, is I want to just go through the process of just building out a store. And I'm going to go back to the InkSoft dashboard. I always like to do a little bit of remedial on general navigation. So typically most folks, when they log in to InkSoft, they're going to be at the dashboard. I think the best navigation practice, at least from my experience, is you can go to InkSoft Core and then you can access the specific area that you're looking for. In this case, it would be stores, but you can also just go to InkSoft Core over here, and then you got the sidebar panel. And this is typically the way I navigate through the application. I just like to leave the sidebar panel open here. So here's everything that's going on with stores, and this is our demo account. But I want to go through this process of creating a store from scratch using the new store wizard. And true to form, seems like anytime there's something that's a first step of a multi-step process in InkSoft, generally speaking, the button to do that's going to be in the upper right hand corner. That's how I would typically go to look for it. And so I'm going to click on New Store here. And we're going to name this store, and I'm going to name it Central Athletics. And you'll notice when I'm naming that store, InkSoft is producing its own store directory. So it's producing its own store directory. This is going to be the dedicated URL for that store, but we're not limited to doing it that way. And it was something that was brought to my attention from a customer at the trade show in Long Beach that was using another store platform. They don't have the ability to redirect a store to a customer's domain. For instance, if Central Athletics had a centralathletics.com, main website, which a lot of the schools do, Central Athletics could create a page and call it stores, and then just redirect to centralathletic.com/stores. A lot of the platforms don't have the ability to do that. You guys have the ability to do that in InkSoft, which I think is a pretty big plus. So we're going to go over here. I'm just going to use the standard store directory here. So I'm just going to hit continue. And this store is going to be public. So difference between a public and private store, Joel, is pretty much a password access. Is that fair to say?
That's the only difference. That's right.
And, there are times when you want to have a private store. If you're doing like the internal uniforms for a government agency and they don't want general members of the public to buy a CIA polo shirt with the official logo, they're going to do a private store. And but most stores, I think, have a tendency to be public stores. So we're going to click on continue. And I'm going to put in who the store manager is. So whoever the boss of the store is should go right here. And I'm going to use my alter ego here, which is not Craig Mertens, which is Greg Mertens. When your name is Craig, your nickname is Greg, just so you know. And I'll put in my contact information here. So I'm going to do Craig@inktovo.com. Phone number, display on the storefront. Nah, I don't really want that on the storefront. And do I want to display my address on the storefront? Absolutely. And so this is actually our home office address. I'm going to change that to Inktovo right there. And we'll display the address on the storefront and show this location on Google Map. What are your thoughts on that, Joel?
Depends. If you want to offer pickup, then definitely you want to do that. But if you're just shipping, you probably don't want to.
Okay, sounds like a plan. And we'll go ahead and hit continue here. And it's going to give me that auto correct where it's actually doing address verification. And that's going to clean up all the uppercase laziness that we put in there. So we're going to do that. And then store logos. So here's a couple tips on store logos. I feel pretty strongly on this. Use a PNG file or an SVG file. PNG file will automatically have a transparent background, so that's going to give me some latitude in terms of changing the backgrounds to a darker substrate without getting that white bounding box. So if you you're creating a PNG file. It's going to automatically knock that white background out if you happen to save that PNG file without a white background, otherwise known as transparency. JPEG files are always going to have that white bounding box around them. GIF file, it's a quick loading internet file format, not my favorite. And then an SVG file is a vector format. I've had issues in the past loading SVG files as store logos with scaling issues, and I've had the best success with the PNG file. So I'm just going to upload a logo with the PNG file for this particular store. So here's my little pennant design, and that's a PNG file. So that's literally like the perfect file to upload. So I'm going to click on that file. We're going to upload that, and that's going to be my store logo. Store icon, and we have that little icon file here. We're going to upload that. So there's our little icon file, and that's going to be sitting on the tab of a tab when somebody opens the tab. I think, Joel, I think that's pretty classy. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's good.
So set a custom preview image for your store when shoppers share your website. I'm probably going to come back and add that later on, and maybe even take a screen grab. But I can upload just a placeholder image. What are your thoughts on that, Joel?
Stick with those dimensions, 1600 by 900. That preview image, if you copy and paste the storefront URL and paste it on Facebook, it'll bring in that preview image automatically to your post on Facebook. So just nice and convenient.
Yeah, I think we're going to leave that alone for now, and we'll kind of maybe come back to that. What are you thinking?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to hit continue here. So do you want to add a designer to the store? Yes. I'm always going to add a designer to the store, but I'm not always going to make it public. And so we can have a designer, but we can hide it in the store navigation, but we can leave it open for the customer portal. Does that make sense? Joel, what are your thoughts on that?
Leave it open for the customers? Yeah.
Yeah, so customer can get to it if they log into their account, but it's not going to be public facing for end users to use. And there's a reason for that, because customers can use it to upload artwork that they might want to get a quote on. And I think that's just generally a really good idea. So we'll go ahead and hit continue to that. And here's some other things. Maybe you don't want to like dealing with distressed files in your designer. You can turn that off. A lot of times people don't have the production and graphics skills to really deal with the distressed file. If you want to offer it and you're comfortable on the graphics side with the distressed file, I would, leave that open. But in this case, I'm going to actually turn that off for this particular designer. I do want to leave design ideas there open, which are your design templates, clip art. I always want to give them the ability to upload artwork in case they want to quote. I don't really care if they're going to upload JPEGs or bitmap files or vector files. I obviously we'd prefer a vector file like a PDF, but I'm going to let them upload anything because I don't want to be a deterrent to them not wanting to do business with me. If they upload a low resolution JPEG file, that's fine. I'm going to work with the customer about finding a solution to get that turned into vector. Enforce boundaries is basically going to not let you draw outside the boundary of the product. So if you have a set imprint area, it's not going to let you go beyond that area. And I think that's, what do you think, Joel? That's a pretty good idea, don't you think?
Yeah, I pretty much always recommend to keep that on. Otherwise, people can place artwork off in space. So. And
then sharing is just giving the ability to grab a link and share that with another client. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Okay. So I think our settings are looking good there. I don't really need to add any art terms, but I could put in terms like, hey, if you design something here, you can't take it to somebody else. And that's actually a pretty decent best practice. Anything else you could see adding in there?
Yeah, I would personally turn off reveal blank pricing and catalog. End user customers tend to, maybe they don't understand the printing industry. They'll see a $5 shirt and kind of get attached to that price, and then they might get upset when it's $12 a shirt in the cart. So me personally, I'd recommend you turn that off so you don't get any calls from upset customers. But if you want to be transparent, that's another thing. So you can turn it back on.
I didn't even notice that. That's a really good catch. Because I think I agree with you. I think it's just going to cause friction with the client. So a couple different ideas on production schedule, and this is really going to depend on how you're set up. So print on demand, if you've got a direct-to-garment printer and somebody can order one shirt, and you want to offer them the ability to order one shirt, you might want to include print on demand. But maybe you're a screen printer and you're going to let a store run for a period of time. Let's say we're going to let this store run to September 15th. and then we're going to close the store, and then we're going to compile all the orders and hope we have enough orders to cover minimums for printing. I'm going to do an expected production date. Anything you'd like to add there, Joel?
That's pretty good. Yeah. If you don't want people hounding you halfway through the month for orders you haven't even started yet, that's also another thing you can alleviate by doing the expected production date.
That's a great
push
point.
Their date based on
that's a really good point. Not that customers would ever do that, right?
Yeah, never.
So do you want to add shipping methods to this store? I think that's generally a best practice, don't you think?
Yeah.
And active shipping methods, we can choose different shipping methods, but the two that we have in here right now are UPS next day, flat rate shipping. Let's maybe add some more shipping methods in here. So I'll add postal service. I'm going to turn off next day. Actually, we'll add priority mail. We'll do UPS ground. Let's see. I'm just going to do, kind of the basics, and then we'll add pickup. So we got pickup, UPS ground, maybe just UPS priority, and flat rate shipping by item count. That's interesting. And that's really more of a business philosophy thing on how you want to do it. Shipping's such a tricky deal because people kind of expect free shipping these days. But frankly, it's a hard cost to you. And in a situation where you have a captured market, like you're doing a store that's exclusive to a school group or an organization, it's not like they're going to be able to get that anywhere else. So I think certainly aging for shipping. Any other thoughts on that, Joel?
That pickup at your business, I would personally turn that off. It's a pickup method, but it's disguised as shipping. It doesn't really work that way.
Got it.
Yeah, just offer shipping here.
Because we always have the latitude when we process the order to set it up for pickup.
Yeah, you can always do that later if you need to.
All right, we've got that. So there's our shipping methods. Do you want to create a pickup location for the store? I think in this case, no. Well, actually, if it's a school store, we could, but I'm going to say no there. And then customer payment. Now, here's the tricky one. Optional, disabled, or required. I think most folks are going to do, if they're doing a requiring payment. Do you want to accept purchase orders only from customers I allow? I'm going to choose that. I try to avoid purchase orders. Purchase order attachments, you can enable that where they can actually upload the purchase order if they want to, if they're a school. But I think the end game here is, we want to have them paying us up front. And so anything we can do to encourage them to do that. We can add, accept coupon codes, gift certificates, because we can manage all that in InkSoft, but it does add some complexity. Allow customer to add gift message to their order. What do you think? That's probably an okay thing to add. So we can turn that on.
Yeah.
Display estimated delivery date. This is the big controversial issue. So I was talking to a customer about this, and he goes, "What do you guys quote for deliver?" And he says, "We give them a window." And so we give them like a 2-week window, and plus, and then we try to beat our delivery date. And I know that's different for every company, but if you're doing a store that is a store that has a time definite close date where that store is going to run for a period of time, you absolutely don't want to turn this on because you're not going to start production typically until all the orders are closed. So you would probably turn that off. You have the ability to have taxable locations. You want to talk about taxable locations for a second, Joel?
Sure. Generally, you can leave that be, but if you do have Nexus in a certain state, you definitely want to set that up ahead of time. And that varies state by state. It's kind of convoluted, so we probably shouldn't get into the nitty-gritty of it. But basically, if you do have Nexus in other states, you want to make sure those are selected there.
And that's actually a pretty good piece of advice, because a lot of times companies like tax jar integration with InkSoft, we just had a discussion about this in management meeting the other day, and it's basically like a giant database, and it populates, but it's not necessarily 100% compliant with local laws and regulations. And so when you're setting up, when a customer is saying, "Hey, I'm tax exempt," that's for don't rely strictly on, tax jar integration to do that. You need to actually dig in and get a little bit more detail on that from the client, because especially when you're doing interstate commerce, every state, as I noticed in Arizona, if I order from Amazon, I'm getting a special tax rate. It's not our normal like 8.2%. It's like, I don't want to say it's like 3.8%. because that's something that Amazon negotiated with the state of Arizona because they have a business presence here. So I guess the word is you do need to have some caution on your sales tax, that you need to be a student of the game and be knowledgeable about it, and just don't accept the customer's word for it, so to speak. And you can make this, so that's a good example, make store tax exempt. They'll tell you they're tax exempt. I want to see paperwork on that. I'm not going to just take their word for it. If they're like a quote charitable organization, I want to see their paperwork showing their tax exempt. Require order approval. That's a really interesting one, and I think this is in my opinion, Joel, I don't know how you feel, but I think it's kind of a best practice. Depends on the volume you're doing. You can set that up for all orders. A lot of times people just do orders that include the designer or uploaded artwork, or orders that haven't captured payment yet, orders that set a set dollar amount. I guess it depends on your tolerance, but there's pros and cons to all of these. So orders that include the designer, customers putting really terrible artwork on there, and it's not production ready. So that would be a reason. Orders that have yet captured payment. You don't want to ship anything where you haven't got a payment up front. And orders that exceed a set dollar amount. Anything over like a pricing threshold that you're not comfortable shipping, anything over $100,000 with order approval. I'm kind of a fan of all orders. That's kind of my preference, but everybody's a little bit different. What are your thoughts on that, Joel?
All orders does make sense. It depends on the volume though. Typically I would just recommend at least, include orders that include designer, upload now. Those are the orders you really want to inspect, make sure they're good to go.
Yeah. And if every store that you're setting up is going to require these same settings, you're going to choose save these settings as default for future stores. I'm not going to do that because there's a lot of other people in this account. So we want to do that. And then custom checkout fields. So if you say yes to custom checkout fields, if you want to put additional fields into your store that are required fields, like who's your sales rep, things of that nature, you can do that. But I'm going to go over here to say no. And people use that field quite a bit. What are some other examples where people use that, Joel?
Custom checkout fields. You could say you have 3 different locations that, you need to track internally, sales to this district office, this district office. You can ask a question, put up a drop down that says, choose the district.
Yeah,
for example. So just a good way to collect more information at checkout.
I think it's excellent. Or how did you find out about us? Another one for marketing purposes. So the email address, this is important because this is going to send the reporting. So daily order summary. It's really nice to get orders in the middle of the night, wake up in the morning or in the afternoon and see a copy of a report that says, we had 412 orders from last night. So I think most people want to set up a daily order summary. As far as the other checkboxes in there, your thoughts on that, Joel?
Most people are good with just daily. Some people want the instant orders. It's really just personal preference at the end of the day.
And you can come back, all these settings you can come back and change later on. Yeah. So you'll have access to your admin to go back and edit settings. So, but this is basically your process of getting a store up. And I'm going to advocate pretty heavily for copying stores when you're doing new stores. Setting up a store as a template and then copying it so you don't really have to go through this process. You can bypass it. This is where you put all your social medias. If you have social media for the group, I think that's a nice touch. I think it's very professional. Probably not going to put them all, but certainly probably going to put Instagram and Facebook on there. Those are going to be the two biggies. And we have it set to show the Facebook links on there. We'll hit continue, and then store policies. So do we want to have the default thank you message, or do we want to customize it? Do we want to have a footer on the packing slip? Do we want to put a very specific refund policy on there? Here's the generic boilerplate one. If you're not 100% satisfied with your purchase, please contact us to request a refund. Please note refunds are not available on all orders. I'm going to change that to all sales are final after delivery. So that'd be just a pretty good example of a refund policy that we're going to use. So we're going to use, I actually got to go and set the custom one up, right?
Yeah, and you'll save this custom.
Final. Save as custom. And now I have my custom policy selected. Delivery policy, privacy policy, that's become a thing. And especially if you're accepting commerce, not just in the United States, but in Canada, where the laws are a little bit stricter about that, that's where you put that. And then you can also save these settings for future stores. And then domain settings. Do you have a custom URL for this site? So this, remember when we first were creating this store, we set a InkSoft URL and we just used the, I think, / Central Athletics. But if you have a custom domain, this is one of the great advantages of InkSoft. If you have a custom domain, like you're going to do Central Athletics / stores, this is where you'd input that. And there is domain configuration required with your hosting provider. And I wish I could say that there was just one set way of doing this for everyone, but there isn't. So you have to have a little bit of familiarity with forwarding from that domain, because you're probably going to use DNS forwarding on that. Anything you'd like to add in there? You're dealing with this every day. Yeah,
all the time. We actually simplified it drastically. Now you just need to point your domain to one IP address, and that's all you have to do. It literally cut the setup time in half, which is really nice. So it's pretty simple now, I'd say.
And that's great, because that's a perfect example of why you want to stay in contact with your account manager.
Right.
Because that's not necessarily things that you would trip over on your own. And that's a much, I've done DNS forwarding. It's confusing. Not a big fan. I've always been able to kind of stumble my way through it and get it to work. But I think being able to have just an IP address to point to, that makes a lot more sense. And we've created a store, and we're going to go to our store, and it is going to be a super exciting store, because the only thing this store is going to have in it right now is a logo and our footer stuff and kind of the basic boilerplate. We haven't added any products. There's just really not a lot going on here. And so, but we do have a store. We've got a starting point. And this is, to me, this is the fun part about building out a store, is being able to go over to the style editor and just start deciding what we want to do. What's my background color? I don't know. Let's try a few background colors. I'm going to try kind of a blue. Actually, I'd like to have a little bit darker blue, but I'm not crazy about that. So I'm just going to try red. And where's that red coming from? That red's coming out of the logo. So it's parsed the store colors out of the vector or the logo. I think I did a PNG file. That's where it's getting it. But you know what I'd really like to do? I'd really like to get a nice rich blue color in there. That's not bad, but I think I want to go a little darker. And so I want to go just a tad bit darker. And so that's my new background color. And by the way, all these blocks, I do have one, block set up here that's already kind of a default placeholder. But what might kind of give it a shot is go over here to edit and maybe change this background color to that red again, and create a little contrast. So just to kind of get a general feel for my color theme that I'm doing. And super important, anytime you want to save changes, you want to save and publish. And if you try to back navigate out of here to another portion, like maybe go to store admin, it's going to give you a nudge that you haven't saved it. So it doesn't mean that you couldn't accidentally do that, but that's a nice little safety measure. So, just hit save and publish, you're going to get a little blink there that you've saved that. And let's start having some fun. So Joel, what do you think? Maybe add a banner into there, maybe first thing? What are you thinking?
Yeah, let's throw Hero Space banner. Those are my favorite.
Okay, Hero Space banner. Yep, here we go. So we're going to throw a Hero Space banner in there, and the Hero Space banner is automatically going to go to the bottom, but we're gonna correct that in a second. And I'm going to go to edit. That's not bad. So I'm just going to open that. Now, a couple things on this. Since we only have a single slide, if we input additional slides in here, we can set up an interval where it rotates. But since we only have a single slide, I think you want to turn your animation to fade. Is that correct?
That's what I would do.
And 0 for because we're not really running a slide. And I think that the color looks good, but I do want to move that up. I want to change the background color on this to red. And here's my color in use, and I want to move it up. So a couple different ways I can do that. I can just hit the up arrow, number one, to move it up, but I can also drag and drop. So if I come down here, it's pretty easy. I can just drag and drop to reposition things, but I think that's the right order. Okay, another thing that I want to add in here, I want to put a promo bar in here. So I'm going to hit plus. So this is how easy it is to add components. So I'm going to add a promo bar in here. The promo bar, I'm definitely going to make that contrast with the red. And we got to edit the copy in here and say 100%. Oh, wait, let's put a date in here. Make sure to get your orders in by September 15. So we can put anything we want on there. People get pretty creative with their promo bars, I've noticed. But that's, just if you just want to draw attention to something, I think it's just a really good place to draw attention. And most of the time, folks are going to center justify that. So that's a good one. And then let's set this bad boy up for a fundraiser, or actually what I'm going to do first, I'm going to do a fundraiser right here. We can add that right here. And I think the color wise, I'm going to slide it up in the order. So remember, we got the drag and drop. You do have to hit here on the gray areas, but let's slide that under the hero banner. And I think we got that nice contrasting here. And this is where really creative. And Joel, you get this question all the time. How do I calculate what I owe the customer when I set up a fundraiser? That's a question we receive all the time. Do you want to answer that for me?
Yeah, there's different ways you could do it. You could just look at the fundraiser component, or you can reference your payouts in our fundraiser report in the back end. So 2 different ways you could do it.
Yeah, I think most people probably want to put some extra eyeballs on it in the fundraiser report, because what we're going to do is we're actually going to go in here to goal setting, and we're going to set it up exactly the way we want it. And I'm not going to do a units goal. I'm going to do a financial goal, and my financial goal is going to count down from $5,000. So that's what we're trying to raise. My customer payout metric are going to be based on 2 types of calculation. Now, bear in mind, you can do whatever calculation you want on a fundraiser. It's up to you. But if you're going to do a calculation based on a different formula, you're not going to want to really use this module. There's another module that we would use that doesn't display the countdown. Maybe you cut a special deal. It's going to be a percentage of gross. If we do that in here, it's not going to be an accurate representative of gross, because the 2 options we have is percentage of profit per unit. So what I'm going to do is, if I go to amount per unit, I can say $5 per product are going to go in there. Or if I come over here and say percentage of profit, I'm going to say 30%. It would be a high number, but I would say 30% of profit is going to the customer. That's a pretty big number. I would probably be more encouraged to do like 20%, which seems to be kind of industry average. And what some people do, they'll say, hey, listen, you guys, anything over $5,000, we'll kick you another 5 points. But you don't necessarily have to formalize this, because this right here is what's driving the banner update. And also description right here, we want to put in 30%, a percentage of each purchase goes to the Central Athletics slush fund. No. Travel fund. So it could be a slush fund. I'm pretty sure those exist. And then we always want to set an end date on a fundraiser. So I want to say, yes, I think we said the 15th of September. So we're going to use the picker here. 15th of September, boop, boop, boop. Arizona time just messes with people's heads. But it messed with our heads today, Joel. We were trying to figure out, hey, what time's the class today?
That's right.
Because go to webinar quotes it as Mountain Daylight Time Phoenix instead of Arizona Standard Time. So there's our little banner. I think it looks pretty good. I'm going to show you kind of a contrasting option, and we're just going to throw that at the bottom here. We're not going to really use it, but so if you're cutting some kind of special deal with the customer, that's not going to be the automatic calculation. What you can do is just use a countdown timer. And so we can go here in a countdown timer, and we can go to edit. And once we go to edit, we can manage the end date. And I'm just going to put that in here just so you guys know that that's another option right here. And so when countdown ends, remove component, or most people are going to close the store, right? Is that pretty typical, Joel?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, we have some stats on that. So we know that average stores open for roughly about 30 days is the average store duration. People do open them and close them. And one of the kind of a best practice, let's say you closed a store and, the product, you just slayed it. You had that store open, you exceeded all expectations. And maybe you bought some closeouts on some, Hanes had a closeout on navy blue t-shirts. And so you bought a closeout on Hanes navy blue t-shirts. Say, hey, listen, we've got excess inventory. We're going to reopen the store for, the next, 5 days. And we got the special on Hanes t-shirts. And maybe you don't even give them a special. Maybe you just pocket the extra margin in there. Definitely a best practice. Closing a store, but then kind of popping it up for a period of time is not a bad idea. And the other thing too, you do want to be I feel like you need to be strict on, when stores close, they close. Because otherwise customers aren't going to necessarily take you seriously. You need to obviously tell them up front, and you're chasing production, and that poor kid that forgot to put their order in. Do we want to accommodate that poor kid? Probably, but that gets to be your decision. So I'm a big fan of being kind of strict on expiration dates, and having I think of all the church and athletic things that I've been involved in over the years doing the swag. If we didn't do the cutoff for our church camp shirts, we literally have to chase kids. Like, hey, listen, you didn't get your short order in. And we do the same thing with our company for our uniforms. I notice I'm doing all the heat. Hey, Joel, I'm doing all the heat pressing for the show uniforms. But we got all that. As of today, we got everybody's sizes in. So, and I was sitting here scratching my head. I said, why didn't we build out an InkSoft store for this?
All right.
Would have made more sense. I think I'm going to do that next time. We just put it in the Slack channel. Everybody's really good about getting their sizes in. So I'm going to go over here and let's just do a save and publish just so we got it. And I think another good one to put in is a little testimonial. So you can put a testimonial in on a fundraising store like this. And let's go and add the title. And here we can put in, we don't really need to put a title in here because we're going to delete this when we're done anyways, but you guys see how that works. But I'm going to add a testimonial in here. And the reason I want to add a testimonial is I want to make sure that, here, I'll become a coach here for a second. I just want to make sure there's a human connection here. And the human connection that I'm trying to create is a coach saying, hey, this has been a really, really great thing for our school. We've raised a lot of money. It allowed us to do some things that weren't necessary. There's my high school. I don't want to do the photo there. That's a little bit too big. Let's clear that. I want to do the testimonial image right here. This will be a little bit better. We could put the football field back in there though, if we want to do that. And then for the testimonial, I'm going to do this is Coach Mertens Central. I'm going to be the soccer coach today.
Nice.
And I don't have to put a link in there, but under the quote it said, this fundraising program enabled us to travel to state and stay in the Ritz-Carlton. There you go. And so we've got that in there. Central Soccer. So we've got our fundraiser, and I'm going to change that. Depends on where I'm going to put it, but I'm going to change it to red because I'm going to slide it up under some product. And actually, you know what? We're gonna go back to the blue, and I'm just gonna get rid of this because I just wanted to just show you guys how we did it, because I didn't intend to leave it in there. So there we go. We got testimonial. We got some product in there. We've got our goal setting. We've got a nice little promo banner in here. Anything else we want to add in here before we start on product, Joel?
I think that's pretty good the way it is.
So always going to save and publish because I have cats. Now I've got kittens. I leave the room and they're walking all over my keyboard. So we're going to save and publish. Yep. And then what I'm going to do next is we're going to talk about product. And so what we have right now, we've got 3 product placeholders here, but I'm going to add an additional one, and then we're going to play around with the coloring a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here and add just a featured product. And that featured product is just going to be a single placeholder. And it's just going to be one featured product right here. And then I'm going to add another featured product, which is going to be a 2-up right there. And then I'm going to go over here to this top one and delete it. And I guess I could have gone in there and just changed the block in there too. And then I'm going to use my drag and drop. So I'm going to drag and drop underneath the fundraiser banner. And then I'm going to drag and drop that product right there. Done. And then I'm going to start playing around with the colors a little bit here. So we're going to go to red, we're going to go do that alternating thing, blue, which means over here, I probably need to go to red. So we're going to kind of go to alternating colors. That looks good. We got that red, white, and blue thing going on. And let's start adding some products. So I'm just going to back navigate here. So I'm in Style Editor right now. So this is where all the magic happens for getting the store layout put together. And bear in mind, we're going at instructional pace. You can easily set up a store in 5 minutes. If you have all the art collateral set up, you can set up a store very, very quickly. So next, there's my preview. So this is what the customer looks at like at anytime I have storefront here. This is what it previews. So it's pretty sparse on the product side. So I'm going to purposely make 3 very specific products just to kind of show you guys some kind of best practices. So I'm going to go over to here to store admin. And this is where we can start to add products. And as you can see, there's nothing in here. Now, if we've already added pre-decorated products is going to show up in here at this point. We'll see it in here. Is that correct, Joel?
That's right. They're stored here.
Yeah. So anything I'd already built in here, as I build out products in here, they're going to show up in here, but we don't have anything yet. So I'm going to hit create new. And this is my catalog. Explain where this catalog of product is coming from, Joel.
So what you're seeing here is every product that you've added to your entire InkSoft account from our supplier catalogs. So all you have to do is add a product one time, and then it's going to be in this list in any store after that. So you add a blank product, go to any store after that, you'll be able to find that blank product in the store, select it, and decorate it.
So these become like your curated products. And I was talking to a customer earlier today, and she was just telling me she just kind of goes in and she needs a Gildan 2000 t-shirt. And she goes in there and selects it that way. I said, well, you know, it's already loaded. That's something you frequently use. It's just going to be in your products. And if you go to categories, you can actually go in and configure what things show up at the top. So you can drag in your configuration settings. You can drag, let's say you do a lot of polo shirts. You could drag polo shirts to the top. So that's at the top of your list. But I think it's pretty handy to go to categories, because what I'm actually just interested right now is I'm just going to do a simple t-shirt. And I'm going to do, let's see here. I think I'm just going to do like this Gildan right here. So we had a question in the panel, and I'm really glad you asked us about kind of graphics guidelines, because I'm going to teach you that. So if we go over here and we say Gildan Ultra Cotton, we do not have any artwork selected on here yet. Now I'm going to add another color. I'm going to add navy blue. And we're going to go down in here, hit navy. And I don't believe you can type in there to jump down to navy. I get asked that all the time, and I know you can't, at least yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. Everybody suggested that. I'm just going to highlight ash here, because we're going to do is we're going to upload a graphic. But it's really important to understand how different graphics are going to be handled and processed in InkSoft. If you're using a vector graphics format, and bear in mind, PDF files can also have bitmaps, so just because it says PDF doesn't mean it's vector. Let's say you're working in CorelDRAW or Adobe Illustrator or Inkscape or Affinity Designer, and you save a file as a PDF file. It's going to preserve the vectors in that PDF file are going to be preserved within that format. Same thing with an SVG file. That's a vector format. So when we upload that file to InkSoft, it's parsing out the vectors. And that's going to be instrumental to us being able to easily create what we call colorways. And so I've got some files that I created. All of the files that I have here are all files that came from our graphics flow, our sister company graphics flow. They're files I just selected a sports template, name dropped it to Central Boosters, dropped in the mascot, and recolored it to red, white, and blue, and then download it. It literally takes me, you know, I could do that in a minute. And that's I think it's a good use case for how InkSoft users use graphics flow to populate cool art in their stores. So I'm going to go over here to PDF files. Okay. So these are all PDF files that I've created. And I think I'm the soccer coach today. So I'm going to select this PDF file and I'm going to click on open. And you're going to, there's actually processing going on behind the scenes here. And we're parsing out the vectors in this file. And what that's allowing us to do is do what we call colorways, where we can isolate colors within the graphic and actually change them. If I upload a PNG file or a JPEG file, I'm not going to have the ability to do colorways. Oh no, in the designer, it's a little bit different because I can still somewhat recolor things from a PNG file in the designer, and a JPEG file in the designer, I can knock the background colors out and things of that nature. But in terms of PDF file, it's your best format, period. If you're working with InkSoft and you're working with outside suppliers, or you're working in a pro graphics platform, absolutely positively, it's going to be PDF. Now, if you're using like Canva, a consumer level product, there's no reason you can't use that, but you're going to save typically as a PNG file out of Canva. So I'm going to go over here and just hit done. And here's where the magic happens, because this color combination right here is going to look great on the gray, but it's going to look not so great on the navy. So if I go down here and click the navy, it doesn't really work because there's navy in the graphics. So this is the advantage of a PDF file. Now I can go to view colorways. I can create a new colorway. We've already parsed out all of the vectors in the file because this is a 4-color vector file. I can click on the navy, select a new color, in which case I'm going to click on the gray and hit done. And now we have 2 versions of the file. We have the version right here that we're going to have for the, let me show you how this works. So if we go over here, here's the 1 version, and then over here, save the colorway. And we have the version for navy, ash, navy. And I think one of the places I noticed, like from training salespeople, they always forget to save the colorway. And they're like, why isn't it changing on the show? You got to save the colorway first before you do that. And so at this point, we're ready to add these products. So let's add them. And kind of like what I'd said before, in the future, or in the previous, before I go forward, if you want to change this to a left chest, you can do that, and you can reposition on the shirt and all that stuff. But what I said before was, the kind of the next step stuff is typically in the upper right, but we have some basic graphics capabilities in here. And, sometimes people are uploading their own product photography, and maybe the shirt isn't quite, it's askew a little bit. It needs a little bit of rotation. That's where it's really handy. You got this, rotation handle. You have to bring it back to like your graphics program, and you have the ability to enforce borders here. So it's going to start cropping once you get it past the border that we created, which is basically your max imprint area. So I think it looks pretty good. Let's create the product. Again, next steps, upper right. Okay, some best practices here. Maybe I want to give myself a little bit of flexibility on the manufacturer in case, for instance, Gildan runs out. I don't think they're going to run out of a 2000 shirt. And you can get that from every major distributor. But if you wanted to give yourself a little bit of more flexibility, because maybe you got a deal on Fruit of the Loom, then you can go over here and remove you can actually remove a part of the description. 100% cotton t-shirt. Let's say generic t-shirt. I want to have navy be the default color. I think best practice, always have the dark color. Dark colors sell better. So in general, having the dark color way be the default, I think, is smart. And then what I'm going to do is under product detail, I'm going to put a prefix into here, which is Central Athletics hyphen, because that's going to make it a little bit easier for me to isolate things in reporting, because I'm using that CA. So when I do a product report, I can just type in CA, and everything that the CA is just going to come up. And then pricing, I think market price here, about 25 bucks retail. They're getting 20%, so they're getting $5 a shirt, so they should be happy. You shouldn't, even if you're getting a DTF transfer done and like 2000 shirt, you're going to be about $6 cost. So 19 bucks profit, and that's not bad. So I'm going to go over here, hit the plus button, and this is where if we want to override prices. Now this is the tricky part. I enabled these sizes in this product, okay, the big sizes. And I think it's generally a good idea, although you run into some imprint issues, that if you have size small shirts, the graphic isn't necessarily going to fit on, a 5X. So it's kind of up to you what you end up doing. But I'm a big fan of price averaging. So I would probably price average the 2X and the 3X. And if I'm going to offer 4X and 5X, I'm going to price average those. And Joel, what's the easiest way if you want to disable sizes within this product? What's the easiest place to do that?
After you decorate it, you can just turn off sizes. You open up the product in Store app, and you can just turn them off there. Or okay, if you want to take care of it ahead of time, just do that in the back end under Manage Products.
Okay. Yeah. So in the back end, when you anytime you add a product, you can go to your product listing, and then you could go in and edit it right in there. But hey, we'll actually take a look at a few things once we get these products located on the back end, just to show. There's one thing I definitely want to show. So here, finish. We've got that product in there. I'm going to add a couple more products real quick. So I'm going to create new. I'm going to do a polo. I'm going to do this baseball cap. I'm only going to do it in navy. And I'm going to go over here and I'm going to upload another graphic, but I'm going to upload a DST file. So DST is the generic format for embroidery. It is a format that will run every embroidery machine. Every embroidery software can open a DST file. Every embroidery machine can sew a DST file, but it is a primitive format. And so one of the kind of the guidelines and things to kind of understand about the DST format is it does not track any color data at all. It cannot store thread colors, nor can it display any kind of color data. It only knows two things that relate to color: the needle position of what object goes to what needle on the machine, and color changes. So Joel, I don't know if you were involved in this, but we had a customer that had 85 color changes in their DST file. I think you were involved in that one. And we were trying to figure out why it was taking forever to load when we tried to upload the file. It was a very poorly digitized file. No file should ever have 85 color changes. It would take literally forever to run on an embroidery machine. And so I was able to troubleshoot it. I brought it into my drawings embroidery software and reduced it down to 8 color changes, and it just loaded instantly. So when I go over here to a DST file, right over here, and I select this DST file, what I'm going to be presented with is those color changes. Here's the 2 color changes. This will be mapped to a needle position on the machine. That might be mapped to needle position 1. You set that up on your machine. Needle position 2, which could be a different color. So I'm going to select this background color. Navy, ghost white looks really good with this. And then hit done. And then here, I'm going to select a different thread manufacturer, because on my red, I actually have a stock of red Madeira thread. And I'm just going to go and pick a Madeira, so we can actually mix palette. And actually, that brick red is really, ooh, that's sharp. And so I'm actually mixing thread manufacturers. And we've got the 4 big ones that are loaded into the software. So I'm going to click on upload, and there we go. Now here's a thing about DST files. It's very important. When we're uploading a DST file, it's not going to let me do really any sizing, because if we resize a DST file, if we spread it out, the threads get wider, and we're going to have pretty significant issues with the embroidery not looking great. And if we compress it, the threads are going to be compressing. You're going to get thread breaks. And so this is operating to scale. This blank is to scale. The imprint area is to scale. We designated when we set up the product what the max imprint area is. If I was using like a rendering of embroidery, like a PNG file that was just rendered embroidery, maybe I saved that in Wilcom or drawings, then I would have the latitude here to size it up and down, because but at that point it's thinking of it as a print file. It's not thinking of it as an embroidery file, which brings up a whole nother issue, which I want to chat with Joel about in a second. But let's go ahead and create this product. Oh, by the way, I can do colorways here too. So for the embroidery, if I wanted to do a different colorway, and maybe I wanted to add the black shirt, I'm going to take, for black, we should probably use gray. We'll just swap these out. So here we'll go kind of like a white. And then here we'll go with the red. It looks good. So now we have 2 colorways. Remember, save colorways. All right, so let's add the black back in. Why not? So on the black, we're going to go this route. And on the navy, we're going to stay there. Looks good. Create product. Product details. I'm going to put in my price, 25 bucks. Finish. Got it. And I'm just going to add one more product. But what we're going to do is I'm going to add a fake embroidery rendering. So I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to go to, let's see, polo shirts, and we're going to add that product, and I'm just going to do it in a single color, and we're kind of sticking with our navy theme here. So classic navy, turn off steel gray, done. But when I upload this file, I'm going to upload a PNG file, and this is going to be a rendering of embroidery. So this is actually going to look like embroidery, even though it's not a DST file. It's just I went into my embroidery software and I had it save a PNG file in 2D. These look great. They look really good, but you can't do colorways on these. So if I do this file, even though it's gonna look great, I can't do a colorway. So I would literally have to create a different colorway as a different graphics file if I wanted to do that. But let's put that polo shirt on there. And you'll notice I have complete latitude over sizing when I do that, except there's one issue. This front embroidery. You see that? So this product is assigned to embroidery. And so when it goes through production, it's still being treated as embroidery. And is there any way to change the process there on that blank, Joel?
It depends on the file type that you upload. So that's what's going to lock in the decoration type on the work order. So if you do upload DSC file, it's going to flag it as an embroidery job. If you upload a PNG, it might, I believe the print region would be called embroidery there in that case. But if you upload a PNG, typically it's going to register it as DTG.
So this is the part that's important, is if you want it to be read out as embroidery, you need to put embroidery in here. Because on your whole production workflow, it doesn't know it's embroidery unless you tell it's embroidery. And
Gotcha.
So if you use a print file in here, on all your production worksheets, let's say you're working with a contract printer, they're going to see print file and they're like, but this looks like embroidery. And now that you have direct-to-film printers, you can actually direct-to-film a transfer of embroidery. It actually looks surprisingly good. But we're going to create that product next. And I think we're going to go big, 40 bucks. And we're going to price average these. We're going to go 45, 45, 50. Got a lot of sizes in here. So 50, 50, done, finish. All right, so I've built 3 products now. So you notice that under active products, there's 3 products showing up. So what we want to do is we want to add these to those content blocks. So I'm just going to go to Style Editor, and I'm going to go to Manage Products, and I'm going to feature the baseball cap because I think it looks cool. So there we're featuring the cap. Manage Products. Then I'm going to feature this product and that product over here. And if I want to change the order, I can do this, drag and drop. But I kind of like the t-shirt first. Maybe it's me. So we're going to hit, and there's our products. And so when the customer clicks on this, they're going to be able to select, the white version or the dark version. And that's how you build a store. And so I'm going to hit Save and Publish now. I want to back navigate to, I want to see what's going on in here. And looks really good. I'm really happy with this. I could go and make other changes if I want to. But here's the thing, if I go and delete the graphic if I go and delete the product in my products, then it's going to show up as a white object. The product's no longer available for this placeholder to draw from. So if you delete a product, this is going to show up as blank again. But maybe you just want to change the artwork out a little bit on this product. If you go into Store Admin and you go into the product itself, let's see here, and edit product, it's kind of hidden. And I did this on a webcast and I was like, where do we change the art? And then the customer was like, yeah, just go to pricing and styles. And I thought it would be right here, but it isn't. It's right here. Edit design and styles. This is where you change the artwork. So if I wanted to change that color combination looks good actually. And apply changes, save and publish. That's how you update the artwork on a product, which is pretty easy. Now, as far as like the size thing, Joel, is this where we can tweak sizes in here too?
Yeah, right there, the active sizes column next to color name down at the bottom. Yep, that little drop down.
Just make this one. I'm going to keep that one as is, but I want to go back to that polo shirt. Well, let's get rid of some of those sizes. So on the polo shirt, I just don't really want to deal with the giant ones here. Yeah.
It's going to be on the pricing and styles tab.
Right. And that's where you go 10 selected, and we'll just uncheck. We'll go all the way up to 3X. And then again, save and publish. So that's the basic process of building a store. And this is my advice. Build a store. Build a store that's not even important. Just build a store. Go in when you first get started, you know, gather the logos, find a photo you want to use for the hero banner, and start building stores. And build the store exactly the way you want the store to be built, because you're going to save that store as a template. Because once we've created this store, if I want to take this store, because I've saved and published it already, if I want to take this store and copy it, all I have to do is go down here to stores and go to that particular store, which was it Central Athletics. So it's going to be at the bottom of my list here. And you see the 3 dots. Hopefully you guys can see the 3 dots. It says copy store. If I go to copy store, I get a new name. It's got to be different than the original one. I can give it a new store directory, and everything copies over with the exception of product. So the layout, the settings, everything comes over. The only thing that doesn't come over is product. So there'll be placeholders in your store where like the featured product was or where the pair of products was. There'll be placeholders there, but you're not going to have the actual product there. And the assumption for that is that that store is going to need different product anyways. So you're going to go in and add your own product and upload new graphics. That's the assumption. But we have had so many requests for customers that said, you know, it'd be really cool is if the product came over and you could globally swap out all the graphics. So if you did a store for, you know, and best practice, 60 to 80% of the business for a school store is going to be 100% cotton tee, 100% long sleeve tee, crew neck sweat, poly cotton blend, poly cotton hoodie, dry fit tee, dry fit hoodie. That's maybe 60% of the school business right there. So if you created one store with those 6 products, to be able to copy the store, have those products come over still in their placeholders, and have a way to globally swap out the graphics of one store with the graphics for another store, wouldn't that be awesome? Wouldn't that be awesome, Joel?
Yeah, I think it might actually be coming soon.
It is. So I've gotten a sneak peek at the development plan for that, and I am beyond excited for that feature. I think it's a really important feature, and I'm really excited to see us implement that. So that's what we wanted to kind of do, the back to basics, building a store process. Every one of these classes builds on itself. And so what you guys were exposed to today, you were exposed to the rapid product creator, where we're creating the products, some basic fundamental principles on dealing with graphics as you load them into a store, being able to set up the store, configure the store exactly the way you want it, using the style editor to visually create that store that looks really cool, and then loading it up with some products. And that's it. I mean, if you kind of get in the practice of, you know, those basic steps, and it's just very easy to repeat, but the first one is always a little tricky. And I had to go through that myself, Joel. You had to go through that yourself. And thanks again for being with us today on InkSoft Academy.